Hi, this is Kimberley. This is a synopsis and a critique of Chapter 9 of My Daddy is a Hero, How Chris Watts Went from Family Man to Family Killer by Lena Derhally. The title of this chapter is He's a Keeper. This chapter starts with the January 10th, 1984 birth of Cheryln Catherine Rusick to Frank and Sandy. Her father, Frank, is described as gentle, emotional, loving, and wears his heart on his sleeve. He has a dazzling smile and personality, much like his daughter. Cheryln's mother, Sandy, is described as outgoing, dominant, and strong-willed, but fiercely loving and loyal. She is the dominant one in the marriage and has a, quote, strong and fiery personality. Wow. So dominant was used twice in her description by Miss Lena, not me. So in other words, is she saying she loves and is devoted in a savagely violent or aggressive manner? And that she's controlling, forceful, raging, attention-seeking, stubborn as a mule, but in a nice way? Right, Miss Lena? Are these really the most glowing and flattering words you can come up with? Or am I taking it the wrong way? I think I'm taking it the wrong way. Also this, quote, the stories from Sandy and the police discovery do not include the perspective of the Watts family, who may very well have their own version of these stories. There may have been several misunderstandings, miscommunications, and different perceptions of what happened with these events. Nonetheless, Sandy's testimony and perspective are important to share as they illustrate the animosity and the breakdown of trust between Cheryln and the Watts family. End quote. Miss Lena is referring to the 10-page letter to D.A. Rourke that Sandy Rusick typed up and sent to him. So, Cheryln sounds like she got all of the positive traits her parents had tied into one beautiful package. Miss Lena says her smile resembles Sandy's smile, and I agree. Her brother Frankie came along a few years later. The book reads, quote, as an adult, Frankie was a tall, lean, attractive man who had inherited his father's bright smile and chiseled cheekbones, end quote. The family moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. I want to know why and when they moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. It does not say. And why does the author not list what Cheryln's parents do for a living? Is it because it's not talked about in the discovery? It would have required some effort to find out. Yeah, I know I'm being a smartass, but I can't help it. I just thought we were going to learn some stuff not existing before, something that had maybe been discovered recently or now for the first time. I feel like all of these books and shows and stuff invariably seem to suggest or hint in the same tired direction. Cheryln Watts grew up in Aberdeen and graduated from Pinecrest High School in 2003. Cheryln was popular and well-liked in high school. Of course she was. I want more than that. You know what? I'm going to write a fucking book. I'm going to do it today. It'll be published an hour from now on Amazon. I'll be right back. What parts of the discovery do y'all want me to fucking copy? Miss Lena described Cheryln, quote, as an adult woman, Cheryln was strikingly gorgeous. She had the signature Rusick smile that lit up her whole face. Her eyes sparkled and danced, and her face would glow when she smiled. Her energy was contagious. More importantly, Cheryln was one of the most loving and loyal people one could ever wish to have in their life. If you were her friend, she would do anything for you. If you were having a bad day, you could call her, and she would drop everything for you. Not only was she determined, driven, loyal, and kind, but she was also raw, honest, and real about herself. Cheryln once said, I'm far from perfect. I didn't complete college. I'm not the best writer or speaker. I'm insecure and scared. I have so many fears and doubts. What I am great at is not giving up. I get knocked down over and over again, but I get up and fight. I fight harder and harder every time I fall. I want to set the best example I can for my children, my husband, and myself, end quote. Beautifully said. Shanann was always independent and ambitious, and she left home at age 18. I never knew she left home at that age, but I'm not surprised one bit. I couldn't find this information anywhere, so I don't know where it came from, but I did see where that was true for Nimrod. He left home at age 18. That was mentioned in the Wisconsin interview, February 2019. Shanann moved out of her parents' house and faced, quote, numerous and diverse challenges. In 2002, she married an attorney, Leonard King. They had met when Shanann was in high school. Shanann worked as a manager at Dirty South Customs in Fayetteville, North Carolina. In her Facebook videos, Shanann alluded to the fact that the marriage to Leonard was dysfunctional, end quote. So I just realized when I was editing this video that according to Discovery, Shanann got married. According to Leonard, he said 2002 or 2003. Miss Lena says 2002. She graduated high school in 2003, so apparently she got married right out of high school. According to Leonard in his Discovery interview, quote, she threw herself into work and wouldn't come home at night, end quote. Leonard wasn't able to get details from her. Shanann would stay gone, but he never was concerned that something happened to her, end quote. What the F kind of marriage is that? This is exactly why marriage is the #1 cause of divorce. The chapter continues, quote, he had attempted marriage counseling with her, and they had gone to a few sessions. She just wasn't interested in working things out. Once the marriage was over, Shanann and Leonard never spoke again, end quote. So, to explain further, Shanann was done. She gave zero fucks about anything or any future events, and particularly about him. An interesting little tidbit is that Leonard's current wife dabbled in Thrive. I'm not sure if that was a coincidence or if Shanann got her signed up or what the story was on that. After divorce, Shanann fell ill, going from doctor to doctor and having many tests done. Eventually, she was diagnosed with lupus and fibromyalgia. Also, she was told she may not be able to have children because of a diagnosis of endometriosis. Dumb fucking Shanann began dating in 2010. Chris and Shit's cousin's ex-wife suggested the two become friends on Facebook. Shanann wasn't particularly impressed after their first date. Pinhead showed up in shorts for an upscale theater with dining. He followed her around like a damn puppy trying to prove his loyalty, putting her medications in a pill box and eagerly going to her colonoscopy, wagging his tail the whole way. You know, if someone I barely knew invited me to their colonoscopy, I would tell them to stick it in their ear and blow it out their ass. Shanann rolled down the car window a bit so he could sniff the fresh air. She had been blowing off in the car all the way there and all the way back. They started calling each other pet names like Fart Face and Dragon Breath. She patiently started putting newspapers on the floor when Dickweed would come over, as sometimes he would have dribbles and accidents from his excitement of seeing Shanann. She fed him quality food, such as spaghetti with her famous sauce and fried pizza, which incidentally gave him the runs. She got him his shots and taught him obedience and how to be sociable. She made sure he got exercise and even allowed him to run freely sometimes in the evening. She used patience and positive reinforcement, and he had learned several commands. But suddenly, after years of loyalty and kindness, in the summer of 2018, he had stopped not only coming when she called him, but obeying her commands too. Shanann worked very hard with CW, trying to get him just right. One night earlier in their relationship, she had to put him out and told him he was in the doghouse. He whimpered and whined all goddamn night, but he learned his lesson and never disobeyed her ever again. Until he started raising hell and doing some serious badass commotion type activities with Nikki when Shanann went out of town. She didn't know exactly what kind of underhanded and rowdy shit and behavior was going on, but he was going to get a rolled up newspaper across the snout just as soon as he got off the airplane in North Carolina. This royally pissed off CW's mother Cindy, as she insisted she was the one that had taught him to be obedient to her, and he wouldn't even come now when she called for him. She had already trained him, and there was nothing wrong with how he acted and dressed and the way she brushed his hair and such. And now Shanann had retrained him, and he wouldn't listen to her, even when she barked her orders. And he started hollering and cussed out his mother right before the wedding. And she was like, "Well, I never," with great indignation. "Yes, you did," retorted Shanann. Cindy and Shanann bickered frequently, butted heads, and blamed one another for CW's sudden acting out in bad behavior. He was showing signs of aggression and defiance. Both accused the other of not socializing or supervising him properly. Quote, Chris said he didn't remember if Shanann had, quote, coached him to confront his family, end quote. That means she probably did. It sounds like it's a common element of all three of these marriages, meaning Chris and Shanann, Cindy and Papa Ronnie, Sandy and Frank, where the men have probably tried to say to their wives, "You're not the boss of me," just to test the waters, and their wife just laughs and pats him on the head. So Lord help us all when these women would come together for a family function. One day Shanann dressed up CW in a purple vest and a tie. CW always wanted to please Shanann, so he was easy to train. Quote, Chris's immediate family did not attend the wedding, seemingly as a result of this blowout dogfight. Quote, only Chris's grandmother and best friend Mark showed up from his close-knit circle. When it came time for the mother-son dance, as is traditionally done in weddings, Chris danced with his grandmother and Mark's mother. Any time in the future when he looked at pictures of his wedding, he said he would always be reminded that his family wasn't there, end quote. He has remained friends through adulthood with his childhood best friend Mark. He was the one that asked CW if he would be jealous if Shanann were with someone else, and CW said no. That was when they were in San Diego. I guess he thought that gave him the green light to pursue a buck-wild relationship with Nikki. Christopher Lee Watts was born on May 16, 1985, in Spring Lake, North Carolina, to parents Ronnie and Cindy Watts. He has a sister, Jamie, who is 7 years older. Ronnie was a parts manager at a Ford dealership, and Cindy worked as a notary and a secretary for a used car dealership. CW insists he had a great childhood, nothing out of the ordinary, and everything was just happy, happy, happy. Chris is quiet and hides his feelings just as Papa Ronnie has always done. Cindy is described as more emotional and the dominant force in the marriage. You think? I can see that. CW denies that his mother was in a constant state of bitchiness, or a miserable person who sucks all the joy and happiness out of life and makes life a little less worth living by her constantly shitty attitude. Sister Jamie was the typical pretty, outgoing, and popular teen. Chris was always seemingly lost in her shadow. I just think of Marsha, Marsha, Marsha when I hear that. Miss Lena says that CW ardently that he did not want to be like his big sister and he wanted to be his own person. I don't see anywhere where he was ardently about not being like his sister. He said he just didn't want to be popular. Page 21 of the Wisconsin interview, quote, his sister was always the popular one and was outgoing. He and his grandmother would sit outside the middle school, and his sister would always be the last one out of the school because she had to talk to everyone in the hallway. He was the opposite of his sister. He didn't want to be popular and just wanted to be, quote, a regular guy. His sister doted on him and always wanted to know how he felt. So, I'm starting to understand a little bit now. Chris has all of his life had females badgering him to express his feelings. You know, mom, sister, wife, and then Nikki. And he does not want to talk about it. Like, not at all. However, I do not find that his sister doted on him and always badgered him about how he felt. I've not found this in the Discovery or the Wisconsin interview or anything else. Quote from the Wisconsin interview last February, his mother was a loving mother and gave him affection. His mother always wanted to know how he felt, end quote. So I'm thinking Miss Lena may have gotten this from copycat clusterfuck Cadle, that his mother doted on him. She was used to having a lot of control in Christopher's life. That's a direct quote from copycat clusterfuck Cadle's book, which incidentally is listed in Miss Lena's bibliography. Oh, what a mistake that was. But Watts had been a quiet child and didn't date in high school. He met Shanann when he was 25 years old and had not been in a relationship longer than 6 months before that, he told investigators. Miss Lena gets CW's high school wrong. Chris Watts went to Pine Forest High School in Fayetteville, North Carolina. She says he went to Pine Crest. Bitch, no. Shanann went to Pine Crest. Chris was a quiet kid that didn't get into trouble. He played sports and was well liked. He was introverted, respectful, awkward, and shy. He was always the quiet kid who followed the rules. So this is why he went buck wild when he met NK, because you can't skip a stage. I've already gone over this many chapters ago with the first book. Anyway, after graduation in 2003, he won a $1,000 scholarship to attend NASCAR Technical Institute in Mooresville. When CW moved out, Papa Ronnie became so depressed that he just dived right in and, quote, became addicted to a white powdery substance, end quote. That white powdery substance is a naturally occurring stimulant that is one of the most popular of the hard drugs used nowadays that made Papa Ronnie feel like a total badass, king of the world, pop star. It's also known as coke, blow, snow, white, powder, lines, rails, bumps, top of the world to the bottom of the barrel. CW and Papa Ronnie grunted to one another about his addiction to drugs. Speaking out loud, especially about sensitive subjects, is frowned upon among the Watts men. So, last chapter, at the very end, Bitch said, Miss Lena said, quote, Graham Coder, Tammy Lee, and Detective Baumhover had been haunted and puzzled by this case and were seeking answers from him. They showed up unannounced, and Chris, somewhat surprisingly, was willing to speak candidly with them about his life, the evening of the murders, and the days following. Chris spoke to them for more than 5 hours in a more detailed confession. Before we explore that, we need to investigate the past and examine the lives of Chris and Shanann, end quote. That's what Miss Lena said. Well, she's already covering a shit ton of what was said in that interview. She said, before we explore that. So it's all like fucked up and neither here nor there. It's going back and forth. That interview is where she's getting a lot of info for this chapter, which she claims where we are going to investigate the past and examine the lives of Chris and Shanann. I'm so fucking confused. End quote. That part's mine, that I'm fucking confused. For fuck's sake, land sakes alive. Plus she's getting some of the info from Pinhead's childhood from Cindy Clusterfuck shit show that we talked about last chapter, the TV interview. If you'll recall, when she wasn't insulting Shanann or complaining, her drama and gossip filled the void alternately, and she praised her son to high heaven with a constipated look on her resting bitch face. Please note, this is in stark contrast to Doofus's blank face, and Papa Ronnie has perfected the apathetic face. They got those facial expressions down, man. Am I making sense? Sometimes I start rambling and then I get lost and I have no fucking idea what my original point was. Everyone loves Tammy and likes to copy from her reports. Read Discovery page 581 onward if you would like all the pertinent details that she gleaned from Tammy's synopsis of the polygraph pretest interview. You have also gotten all of CW's childhood information if you watch the polygraph videos that I posted the other day. This is all in the chapter. The book reads, quote, Chris's weight fluctuates throughout his life. He loved to eat, and his family joked that he was like a garbage disposal. He was overweight and socially awkward throughout some of his relationship with Shanann. When he started using the Thrive products Shanann was selling and began to work out, eat healthier, and become tan and fit, his co-workers nicknamed him the Silver Fox, a tribute to his silver hair and all-American good looks, end quote. Although I've heard that he was called the Silver Fox at work, I've not been able to find this. Also that he was referred to as a garbage disposal. Not that these things are crucial to the story, but that's how boring and tedious this chapter has been. I'm looking up frivolous, pointless, insignificant shit. CW's also been alluded to as a bitch-ass, doofus, liar pants, dumbfuckery, pussyfoot, self-absorbed, deceitful, self-centered asshole, bastard, fool, nincompoop, jerk, detestable, ignoramus, idiot, imbecile, moron, klutz, half-wit, thicko, thick-head, dickhead, nitwit, doe, nerd, pig, dummy, donkey, stupid, scum of the earth, giant asshole, meathead, witnit, numpty, twerp, psych, stupisan, go, gasbag, bile, silly billy, schmuck, lard-ass scum, fuck off and go to hell, bag, felonious, are you fucking kidding me? Pray, pansy, barbarian from hell. Fuck out of here. Miss Lena kinda gushes about CW's looks. Also that Kristen shit always comes across as the typical, quote, nice guy that is easy to be around. Well, that may be, Miss Lena. However, Kristen shit was refusing to stop being a stupid dumbass. I wish he could have used his time alone that summer to go to a nearby church, throw himself on the front step, wait for somebody to come pick his sorry ass up and take him inside and slap him. Perhaps he would have been moved to seek some help, but I know he brought up going to church and became immersed in the Bible after he was incarcerated. So it's not a stretch that it could have been a possibility and an option for him before he flipped his fucking lid and annihilated his entire family. There's nothing new here. I'm annoyed. I was hoping Miss Lena would have interviewed some people, but this is all from Discovery, which she apparently is being careless with because she got the Coder Tammy thing mixed up, and now Pinhead's high school was incorrect. Except for the way she gushes about everybody's looks that she seemed to write on her own. She praises the looks of CW, Shanann, Frankie, Frank Sr., and Jamie. Just falls silent on Sandy, Cindy, and Papa Ronnie. How rude. Miss Lena got her information from Discovery, the Wisconsin interview transcript, and of course it was Tammy Lee's synopsis. She also references Sandra Rusick's letter to D.A. Rourke on Discovery pages 1400 to 1409. And then Cindy Watt's meltdown interview with Channel 9 News in Denver. She used that too. There were no footnotes listed for this chapter, so I got curious and I checked the bibliography, and I'm shattered to see that she used Copycat Cadle's Clusterfuck book for part of her own book as a reference, which I had suspected. She bounces back and forth in the chapter between Chris and Shit and Shanann, and I don't like that. Stop doing that. So, if I'm darting all over the place, it's because I gave the fuck up trying to put this shit into some semblance of order. I'm not kidding, goddammit. No, really, I can't deal when stuff gets all mixed up and then I can't sort it out. So please, pardon my muddled mess. I just want to throw all the fucking shit up in the air and let it land wherever it did. And, well, that's how my notes were for this synopsis, so forgive me. I thought she was going to delve into their childhoods and shit. I got flippin' excited for nothing, really. Why are these authors being so obstinate? Why am I being disagreeable? Well, this repetitive horse shit's been reviewed 1,000 times. I'm tired of the same old shit and it's redundant as hell. The more it goes through the wash, the more faded and lukewarm it gets. Everybody acts like they got some new and exciting shit and they don't. I'm waiting for an investigative journalist to come along and wow me. Yeah, I'm sure someone is like, yeah, I want to amaze and astonish Kimberley. Is it just me, or are these authors showing very little enthusiasm? Maybe I'm just being a battle axe. I've been called that before. It's okay, I know. My husband is an old goat. I hope this video made sense. I'm not looking for sympathy at all, but I had a really bad fibromyalgia flare, probably post-holiday thing, and so I had a little bit of a struggle, but I think I'm going to be fine now. So thank you, and if some of this shit didn't make sense, just overlook it, please. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. And that will be the end of this video. I will pick up at chapter 10 in the next one. Thank you for listening.
You know, Shannon Watts, as we mentioned, lived in Moore County, still has relatives there.
Her husband grew up in Cumberland County and graduated from Pine Forest High School. WRL's Gilbert Bays is live at the school. He spoke with the principal and neighbors of the Watts family in Spring Lake. Gilbert.
Catherine and David, I've been out on campus here at Pine Forest High School just about all day. The school's not in, but teachers are here, and everyone was asking me what I was doing. They thought it was some type of back-to-school story, but they were shocked to find out a former student has confessed to killing his pregnant wife and children in Colorado. 15 years ago, Christopher Watts graduated from Pine Forest High School in Fayetteville. His pictures in the yearbook show a young man with many interests, including a patriotic-themed page and automobiles. A neighbor who lived next door to his home in Spring Lake didn't want to go on camera, but said he loved fast muscle cars.
Yeah, he had went to a NASCAR training thing, and he was trying to do that for a while. I don't know what, after that I lost touch with him.
We all had that gut feeling, but I don't think anybody wanted to believe it because he don't seem like the kind of guy that would have done something like that.
In an interview with our NBC affiliate in Colorado, Watts says he became alarmed when he sent a text to his wife Monday and she didn't respond.
That was a little off. And then her friend Nicole showed up about a little after noon. I could see it on the doorbell camera. That's when I was just like, all right, something's not right. If she's not answering the door and she said the car was here, it's like, I gotta go home.
But when you watch him interviewed, you can see that he's kind of distraught, that there's other things processing in his mind that he's just not coming forth with.
Investigators believe they found the bodies on property owned by Anadarko Petroleum, where Watts used to work. The company said, "We are heartbroken by this, and our thoughts and prayers are with the loved ones and friends of the Watts family. We will continue to support law enforcement in its investigation." Meanwhile, those who know the family join in that sentiment as everyone grieves the tragic loss of young lives.
But she lost almost 3 grandbabies. There's no way to empathize with that. That's where I'm at with it. I feel bad for her. I feel really bad.
And, you know, everyone here is still shocked by the North Carolina connection to this terrible, tragic situation in Colorado. Deborah, at this point, no word if there's any special memorial that will be planned here in Cumberland County for the family.
It's just devastating. Gilbert Bays live in Fayetteville. Thank you. It's a heart-rending story touching people across the country from Colorado to North Carolina. Thank you for joining us. I'm Deborah Morgan.
And I'm David Crabtree. A father, a husband, a man whom police say confessed to killing his family. It literally just stops you in your tracks, and the story is still unfolding. Cameras were not allowed as Chris Watts appeared in court for the first time since his arrest. Prosecutors said they believe the murders happened in their home. The judge denied bond. His next court appearance will be Tuesday morning and more charges could still be filed. Authorities found Shannon Watts and her two daughters on the grounds of a petroleum drilling company where Watts worked. A company spokeswoman says Watts is no longer an employee and that the company is heartbroken.
We have team coverage tonight as we try to reach some form of understanding. The police investigation continues at this hour in Colorado. Brian Mims is there, where a memorial to Shannon Watts and her daughters grows by the minute outside of their home. Gilbert Bays went to Cumberland County to learn more about Chris Watts in his high school years. We start with Amanda Lamb, live in Moore County, where the Watts recently spent a few weeks visiting family. Amanda talked to friends who shared some unexpected information. Amanda?
Deborah, everyone who knew Shannon Watts in this town says she was a strong lady. She was diagnosed with lupus and fibromyalgia, but she did not let it get her down. She was a successful businesswoman. She sold a weight loss supplement, and she also put her family first. She was here in Aberdeen last week visiting family, and she was right here in this salon where her mother worked, visiting with friends. To people in Aberdeen, where Shannon Watts grew up, she was a bright light.
Positive person. Like, she was so positive all the time. Like, she definitely enjoyed life. She loved her little girls more than life itself.
Stacy Fowler went to Pinecrest High School with Watts and recently saw her on a visit home where she shared her pregnancy news.
She was glowing. They were excited.
She was definitely one of those people that when she walked in the room, it was just like sunshine.
On the visit, Watts brought her husband, Chris, and her children to the hair salon where her mother, Sandy Honorati, works.
Chris was very standoffish. He didn't really say anything. I said hi to him. He kept his head down.
Online, Watts boasted about her love for her husband and posted happy photographs with him.
Knowing Chris and how happy they always seemed, I just can't believe that he did it.
She mentioned, about them having problems, the Shannon and Chris.
But Watts' mother's coworkers say Oranati told them there was trouble in the marriage. And you said you thought they were going to separate.
Oh, that was the plan. That was definitely the plan.
This small community is reeling from news of the murders.
You never think that somebody that you've met before it's gonna happen to them, and the kids too. It's just awful.
And it's just heartbreaking and devastating for this to happen to such a good person and such cute, good girls. They had a whole life ahead of them that was just taken away unfairly.
Now, we understand her mother is in Colorado. Her brother, Frankie Ruzick, is here in Aberdeen. He posted on Facebook, "My blood is boiling and the pain and anger and sadness I have in my heart. Nothing, absolutely nothing would get in my way of taking his life like he did mine and my entire family."
Before his arrest, Chris Watts spoke to the media, begging for the safe return of his pregnant wife and daughters. Today, WRAL's Candace Sweat watched that interview with a neuropsychologist who had some very interesting things to point out about Watts' behavior. She's here now with that piece of the story. Candace?
Catherine, Dr. Condor says it's not unusual for people to make assumptions when watching an interview like the one with Chris Watts. And if you're an expert, those observations and nuances actually do mean something.
It's the interview that took place just some 24 hours before Chris Watts was charged with the murder of his wife and children.
I've never seen something like this in my lifetime.
Thousands have watched that interview, including Dr. Robert Condor, a neuropsychologist who's worked 14 capital murder cases, analyzing people accused of the most egregious crimes.
I'm interested in the criminal mind, and we're trying to figure out why people do violent things.
Together, we watched the uncut interview, Dr. Condor taking note of every inflection, movement, even skin tone to make an assessment.
I'm looking for how he presents himself, what his face looks like. You would imagine that a husband who doesn't know where his wife and two little girls are would be ashen-faced.
So what did he observe about Watts, and what does it mean, the crossed arms, the rocking?
It's like he's cradling himself, he's trying to soothe himself a little bit. And the rocking comes from soothing, it comes from infancy. That babies rock and hold themselves to feel better. He's trying to make himself feel better in this situation.
And his choice of words.
It's really stilted and sort of intellectualized. He's what we call isolation affect. He's cutting off his feelings. and using these fancy words.
Even the nuances, the innocuous, are significant here.
That's a micro-expression. Looking up is a micro-expression. He's really not blinking a lot. He's really, we blink naturally, and he's trying to control a lot of stuff. And one of the things you do, control autonomic responses like blinking.
Ultimately, though,
I think he's really torn up and struggling with his conscience about this. And somebody who's going to come forward is going to be him.
And part of him coming to that conclusion that Watts is sort of had this internal struggle is that Dr. Cadle says he did sense some remorse when it came to Watts answering questions about the two little girls, perhaps not his wife, but about those children. He said he sensed an authentic remorse in that video. Catherine.
Very interesting. Candace Sweat live in the newsroom. Candace, thank you. And breaking news to report now. We've just received some new documents in the Shanann Watts murder case. WRAL's Brad Johansson live now in the Live Center with what these documents reveal. Brad?
All right, guys, I want to take you through this document. This was a document that was filed at 9:55 a.m., so that's Denver time, would just before 1 o'clock in the afternoon for us, saying that the autopsy was about to begin in 20 minutes. So at 1:15, the autopsies of the two children were scheduled. This was a motion because defense counsel said that they had spoken to a DNA expert today. The DNA expert wanted to take swabs. This is a motion to compel pathologists to take throat swabs for DNA tests of the two children, a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old daughter, apparently of Chris and Shanann Watts. Well, this DNA test would give you an indication that they were looking to find out who the children were. In dealing with this, as you talk about the DNA tests, they say that in finding these two children, the remains were in a vat of oil for 4 days, but believing that these swabs taken from the neck and inside the throat would still be evident. They wanted to make sure that they can declare the father and the mother of these two children, and rather than suppressing the evidence, have the evidence before it actually gets thrown out. We'll continue to follow up on this, but right now, there's sadness in Colorado, sadness here in Carolina. Brian Mims has been in Colorado for the last 2 days and about to have a vigil down there in front of their houses. Brian?
And Brad, that sadness is palpable. A few dozen people have arrived on this windy, cool evening outside the Watts family home. And as you see, that memorial continues to grow, memorial of flowers and balloons and teddy bears outside the home where prosecutors say Shanann and her two little girls were murdered. Today, the public defender representing Chris Watts came to the house with a DNA expert. Let me show you some video. They spent several hours inside the home and would not speak with us afterward. Reporters asked how Chris, the suspect, is holding up. No response. Chris Watts' attorneys requested that DNA swabs be taken from his wife and two children, as you heard Brad discussing a moment ago. A couple of police officers, Frederick, Colorado police officers, escorted the defense team into the house. A few neighbors became a little testy because the defense counsel was here in the neighborhood, but there were no confrontations. This evening, people in the community continued to come and place flowers and other gifts to express condolences. We spoke with Kimberley London, who didn't know the family but wanted to bring her 10-year-old daughter to bear witness to the tragedy that has traumatized this community.
I don't know, at moments hasn't even sunk in. It's like a bad movie, you know. It's just so sad. It's just really, I don't know, it's just touched our family in a way, I guess, because this is our community. This is where we came to live. And it just is a horrific thing, just absolutely horrific.
Chris Watts was arrested Wednesday evening. Local media quote law enforcement sources as saying he admitted to the killings. The bodies were found on property owned by the company Chris worked for, the oil company he worked for until he was arrested. The motive still unknown. And we will bring you back live to the scene here on Saratoga Trail, where, as you see, a large group of people has amassed across the street from the home. Some are bearing candles. They have come here to remember and to grieve together and to comfort one another. That memorial, that vigil, begins in about 20 minutes. We will share some of the images and emotions with you on our newscast at 11 on WRAL TV. Catherine.
Certain to be a very emotional night there, Brian. Mims live in Frederick, Colorado. Brian, thank you.
I did have 2 trash cans. I'm down to 1. I've ran after it 3 times and it about killed me. And there goes someone else's trash can.